The thing is, I did not think a ring could decide who I was. One bathroom sink, two drinks, and of course my friends said I looked freer without it. My husband had told me married women did not belong in clubs, so I took off the part that made me look married. By morning, Evan treated me exactly like the single woman I had pretended to be. My name is Yara Nassar. I was 32, and I worked as a municipal cultural events coordinator for the city. The thing is, I saw myself as the woman who made public life feel safe without making it boring. One permit folder, two venue maps, and of course I believed I knew the difference between protection and control. That afternoon, the community arts office smelled like printer toner and cheap coffee that had burned too long. I stood over a floor plan for a summer night market, moving the stage entrance away from the beer garden because I knew how people behaved after midnight. I could tell a club owner where to put security without killing the music. I could tell a councilwoman why young people still needed rooms that did not feel like punishment. At home, Evan loved me in the same language I used for permits: routes, backups, exit plans, fire doors, rideshare codes. He was 35 and worked in fire safety compliance, so danger was never abstract to him. It had measurements. It had forms. It had consequences if people ignored one small sign. There were good things. I need that said. During late council meetings, Evan used to wait outside with shawarma in a paper bag because I forgot dinner when public comments ran long. When we got married, he had my grandmother's tiny stone hidden inside the wedding band, under the diamond setting so only I knew it was there. He said private things could still matter. That used to make me feel chosen. Lately, it made me feel labelled. The first time he asked what had changed, he was standing by the apartment door with his keys in one hand and my rideshare app open on his phone. He said it softly, not angry, not even suspicious. He asked because my office had an event at a downtown lounge the next night, and he had already checked which streets were closed. What he meant was that he wanted me safe. What I heard was that I needed clearance. I told him nothing had changed. I said work was loud. I said the city was making every small event feel like a hearing. He nodded and placed his keys in the blue ceramic dish beside the door. My ring touched the dish when I took it off to wash my hands. Just for a second. Silver against ceramic. Small sound. No crime. Mila texted then, asking if my home inspector husband had approved my permission slip for Friday. I smiled before I answered. Evan saw my bare finger resting beside the ring. He did not ask who had written to me. He only looked at the dish, then at my hand, like one of them had just said something louder than I did. The downtown lounge preview smelled like lime, polished concrete, and the sweet smoke from flavoured vapes people pretended were not smoke. I had approved the venue for a city youth arts partnership, which meant I was there in an official way, wearing black trousers and the jacket I used when I needed club owners to remember I controlled their permits. The thing is, I knew these rooms. One clipboard, two wristbands, and of course I told myself being comfortable there was part of my job. Dante Cruz was already near the bar when I arrived. He was 30, a promoter with perfect shoes and the kind of smile that made people feel selected even when he was looking around for better company. I knew him through nightlife meetings. He always called city rules boring until he needed a permit approved fast. That night, he told the club owner that I was the only person at City Hall who understood that safety did not have to look like punishment. He said it where 3 people could hear. One of them turned toward me with a new face, like Dante had given them permission to see me as more than the woman with forms. It landed somewhere Evan had not touched in a long time. Evan loved me by checking whether exits were clear. Dante looked at me like I was the reason people entered. Mila arrived late in a silver jacket, bringing that warm, careless energy she had when someone else's life was about to become more interesting than hers. She hugged me and asked if Evan had fitted me with a tracking device yet. I told her not to start. My mouth smiled anyway. Nadia was there too, helping with the arts group's donor table. She had known me long enough to hear the difference between a joke and the thing under it. She did not laugh as quickly as Mila. She only asked if Evan was coming later. I said Evan did not like clubs unless he could inspect the sprinklers. Dante heard that and laughed into his glass. He said some men were born wearing reflective vests. I told him that was terrible. Of course I laughed before the warning could become loyalty. The first active choice was small. It always is, at least when you are inside it. Dante asked where to send the updated guest photos for the city partner page. The official email sat printed on the bottom of my badge. My thumb still opened my personal contact card. I told myself it was faster. Work events were messy. People sent files everywhere. He saved my number as Yara, no title, no department. At 11:28, Evan texted that he could come get me if I was done soon. The main preview had ended. Staff were already moving stools back into rows. The event was over enough for an honest person to go home. Dante leaned close to show me a video from the dance floor earlier, where the lights made my face look warmer than it was. He said I looked like I belonged in these rooms instead of just approving them. I typed that the event was still running. That was not completely false. A few people were still there. A bartender was wiping the same counter. Mila was laughing near the DJ booth. Dante still had my attention. It was not exactly true either. The thing is, I did not think 26 minutes could become a lie with weight. One text, 2 empty glasses, and of course I told myself marriage did not require a minute-by-minute report. I stayed because staying felt like choosing myself. I stayed because Dante did not ask whether I had eaten or how I was getting home. He asked what kind of music made me stop thinking like City Hall. Nadia saw us from outside the glass wall when she left with the donor folders. I saw her pause near the window. Her face did not accuse me. It was worse than that. It looked like she was storing something she did not want. When I got home, the apartment hallway smelled like lemon cleaner and the soup Evan had kept warm. His shoes were lined beside the door. Mine looked loud next to them. He was sitting at the kitchen table with his laptop closed. The blue dish sat beside him because he had moved it from the hall while cleaning. My ring was in it. His keys were not. He asked about Dante's tagged photo. Specific. Factual. Evan did not say I was a liar. He said Dante had tagged me at 12:14 near the lounge bar after I told him the event was still running at 11:28. He asked what had happened between those 2 times. 1 photo, 2 timestamps, no raised voice. What he meant was that the sequence scared him. What I heard was that my husband was building a case out of my night. I told him he was making 1 photo into a marriage audit. I said my job involved people, rooms, late changes, and men who were not automatically threats because they owned clubs. He rubbed his thumb along the edge of the blue dish. That tiny motion annoyed me more than anger would have. He said he knew men were not automatically threats. He said secrecy made ordinary things look different. That should have slowed me down. Instead, I heard my father's voice from years ago, asking my mother why she needed lipstick to buy bread. He had called it care. He had called it knowing what could happen. By the time she stopped going places alone, he still called it love. So I told Evan that concern was the oldest costume control ever wore. His face changed by 1 inch. The corner of his mouth went flat. He stood and put the soup in the fridge without asking whether I wanted it. Mila texted while I was still in the kitchen. She asked if the safety board had finished its inspection. I answered that he had opened a full investigation. 3 dots appeared from Nadia in the group chat after I sent that. Then, they vanished. By morning, Nadia had not reacted. Evan had put the blue dish back by the door, but my ring sat alone inside it, turned on its side like it had been set down carefully and left to explain itself. Saturday began with rain against the bedroom window and Evan standing by the dresser, holding my black jacket. The club opening was not a work event. That part mattered, though I spent most of the day sanding the edge off it inside my head. Dante had invited a few people from the City Arts Group to the official public launch after the preview. Mila wanted to go. Nadia had already said she was busy. The thing is, I heard busy as judgment, because judgment at least gave me something to push against. 1 jacket, 2 missed calls from Mila. And of course I decided everyone was making a normal night into a referendum on marriage. Evan asked if Dante would be there. Calm question. Clear question. He stood near the dresser, not blocking the door, not touching my bag. That should have mattered. I said it was Dante's club network, so yes, he would exist somewhere in the building. Evan said he did not want his wife going to a nightclub with Dante's crowd after what had happened the night before. Not because he owned me, he said, because he had seen how I looked in that photo, and he did not know where he fit in the room I kept defending. He used the word wife. That was the word that caught. Not Yara, not my name. Wife. What he meant was that he was afraid of being outside the part of my life where I looked alive. What I heard was that married women had assigned locations. I told him married women were not library books to be returned after dark. He said that was not what he meant. I said it was always what men meant when they started sentences with wife. Mila arrived downstairs and called me from the curb. Her voice was bright, already half inside the night. She asked if I was coming or if Evan had chained me to the blue dish. I told her I was coming. Evan looked at my hand. My ring was on. His eyes went there first, then to my face. That small check burned through me harder than any accusation. At the club entrance, the line bent around the building. Bass moved through the pavement before I even reached the door. A doorman I knew from city meetings waved us inside, and Mila said my government power was finally being used for something useful. The bathroom was all black tile, gold taps, and mirror lights that made every face look like it had a secret. Someone near the sinks was vaping cherry smoke into her sleeve. It mixed with perfume and spilled tonic water until the air felt sweet and sticky. I looked at myself under those lights. 32. Married 2 years. A city badge in my purse and a ring on my finger that suddenly looked less like jewelry than a sign around my neck. Mila stood beside me fixing lipstick. She asked if I was all right. I told her Evan had said married women did not belong in clubs. That was not his exact sentence. It was what I had kept. Mila said then, maybe I should stop looking married for one night. It came out as a joke. Her eyes still checked mine after she said it. The thing is, people think the big choices arrive with thunder. Mine arrived with soap foam near a sink drain. I twisted the ring once. My finger resisted because the band had been there long enough to make a small groove. I pulled harder and it slid free. One pale circle stayed behind. I placed the ring on the porcelain sink beside Mila's lip gloss. Silver, pink plastic, water spots. Nothing sacred under club lights. Mila lifted her phone. She did not point it straight at the ring, but she did not hide it either. I said no ring meant no husband tonight, and I said it with the smile people use when they want a sentence to be brave instead of cruel. She laughed first. Then another woman by the mirror laughed because laughter is easier than deciding what you just heard. Mila posted a story from the bathroom fast and shaky. My bare hand flashed near my face. Cherry smoke moved between the mirror lights. The caption said that Yara had been released from wife jail for the night. I saw it before she uploaded. I could have stopped her. Of course I did not. Inside the club, Dante found us near the VIP stairs. He looked at my hand before he looked at my face, and I hated that I liked the recognition in his eyes. He asked if City Hall was off duty. I told him City Hall had a personal life. He put a wristband around my bare wrist himself, slow enough for Mila to notice, quick enough to deny. He introduced me at the booth as the woman who finally came out free. People cheered because people in booths cheer for anything that sounds like permission. I put my hand on Dante's shoulder for a photo. Not around him. Not intimate enough to accuse. Close enough to read. The photographer's flash caught my bare finger. At home, Evan watched the story once. I learned that later from Erin, not from him. He did not call. He did not text. He walked to the blue dish, removed his own ring, and placed it on the console table, not beside mine, but several inches away. That space mattered. At the club, I kept checking my phone for a fight. Nothing came. No angry line, no demand, no question. Just the screen staying empty while the room kept moving. Dante asked if my husband was the dramatic type. I said Evan did not do dramatic. He did quiet disapproval and fire exits. Dante smiled like quiet men were a type he had already beaten. Near the second drink, Nadia texted Mila, not me. Mila showed me the message by accident when she opened her phone. Nadia had written that this was not funny anymore. Mila locked the screen too fast. That was the first crack in the night. Small, but there. I looked at my bare finger under the booth light and saw the pale circle again. For 1 second, the whole room moved away from me. Not gone, just distant. The music stayed loud, but my hand looked unfinished. Then Dante leaned down and said, I looked better without rules. The door closed. I lifted my glass and told Mila to take another picture. By the time Erin received the story from a mutual friend, my ring was still on the bathroom sink. Mila had to remind me to go back for it. When I picked it up, it was wet on one side from someone else's hand washing. I dried it on a paper towel and dropped it into my purse without putting it on. That was how I came home. Evan was awake, sitting in the living room with the lamp on. The blue dish was empty now. His ring was on the console table, separate from the dish, separate from mine, separate from him. He did not ask where mine was. He only looked at my hand, then at the hallway behind me, like a crowd had followed me home and was still laughing where he could not see. Erin's living room smelled like eucalyptus cleaner, and the coffee she drank too late because she said sleep was for people who trusted their marriages. She had asked me to come over Sunday afternoon. Not Evan. Erin. That made it harder to dismiss because Evan's sister did not do soft traps. She did straight lines and quiet furniture. The thing is, I went there ready to be reasonable. 1 cardigan, 2 missed calls from Mila, and of course I had already prepared the version where everyone else had made my joke ugly. Erin opened the door wearing jeans and an old university sweatshirt. No makeup, no performance. Her son's toy truck sat upside down near the hallway. She picked it up before I stepped over it, then placed it on a shelf like she needed her hands busy. She said she had seen the story. She said she was not there to shame me for dancing or going out. She said she wanted to know why I had made Evan's marriage look removable in front of people who already wanted to laugh at him. That sentence landed badly because it did not sound like jealousy. It sounded accurate. I told her she was projecting from her own divorce. I said some women saw every party as evidence because their own homes had gone quiet. Her face did not move much. That was very Brooks' family. Calm faces, careful mouths. Hurt turned into a straight back. She said I had once called her divorce boring freedom at a brunch. She said she had laughed then because she did not want to ruin the table. She said she understood now that I thought freedom had to look loud, or it did not count. I reached for my phone, though it had not buzzed. A small consequence. My hand needed escape before my body did. When I came home, Evan was in the bedroom. The curtains were half open, and the apartment looked too clean for a Sunday after a fight. My purse sat on the dresser. I had left the ring inside the inner pocket. Evan had not searched it. He had not needed to. The ring was now in his palm because I had taken it out that morning and set it near my perfume, still not wearing it. He asked if we could talk. His voice was not the voice from Saturday. It was lower, more tired. He said he had handled something badly after the launch party last spring, when a drunk man had grabbed my wrist outside a venue and he had arrived late. He said after that, every club night made his chest tighten. He said he had turned that fear into rules because rules were easier for him than saying he was scared. There it was. The flaw I had been asking him to name. The real thing. The thing he had done wrong. For one breath, I had the shape of a different answer. What he meant was that he knew he had made the marriage smaller by trying to make it safer. What I heard, because I wanted to hear it, was that his fear was being handed back to me as homework. I told him I was not responsible for managing every panic he dressed up as love. He looked down at the ring in his hand. My grandmother's hidden stone was inside it, under the setting, invisible unless you knew where to look. He said he was not asking me to manage him. He said he was asking me not to perform being unmarried when I was angry. I laughed once, too sharp. I said everybody kept using that word perform as if I had staged a crime. He did not answer that. Instead, he opened the top drawer and took out the small velvet box the ring had come in after the jeweler reset it. He placed my ring inside. Slowly. Too slowly for a normal movement. He closed the lid with his thumb. That was the moment. The pale ring mark was still on my finger. I saw it when he turned away. The skin looked lighter than the rest of me, a thin band where the metal had stayed through showers, sleep, work, fights, council meetings, dinners, and all the ordinary days I had stopped counting as love. For a second I understood something without words. The ring had not stopped me from leaving. I had left with it on 100 times. I had walked through late rooms, city meetings, clubs, and street fairs wearing it, and it had never tightened. Evan had made mistakes. His fear had edges, but the ring had not been the cage. I stood there with my finger lifted slightly, like my own hand had become someone else's evidence. Then I closed the door. I told myself the pale mark looked like a bruise. I told myself any promise that left a mark had already become pressure. I told myself my mother's hand had looked the same before she stopped going out at all. The thing is, I needed that thought quickly, and it came. Evan carried the velvet box to the spare room. He did not lock the door. He only shut it. That felt worse because locks make a person look guilty. An unlocked door can still mean they are done inviting you in. Later, Nadia texted me privately. She said she loved me, but the club story had made her uncomfortable. She said Evan was not perfect, but I had wanted the room to laugh at the idea of him. I typed that everyone had turned into his legal defense team, then deleted legal because even the word felt too large for the apartment. I sent that she was being dramatic. She did not answer. Myla answered after 3 hours. She said Erin sounded intense and that Evan needed to loosen up. But the message had no fire in it. No joke. No voice note. Just words sitting flat on the screen. I wrote back that I might go out again next weekend just to prove nobody owned me. The typing bubble appeared. It disappeared. That night, Evan slept in the spare room. I heard him open the drawer once, maybe for a shirt, maybe for the velvet box, maybe for nothing. In the morning his toothbrush was still in the bathroom, but the charger beside his side of the bed was gone. One cord. One empty socket. No speech. I told myself he was sulking. Of course I did. The next Friday, the apartment felt like a waiting room that had run out of magazines. Evan had moved through the week like a person checking items off a private list. Laundry folded, bills sorted, work shirts hung, no slammed doors, no big statement. The thing is, quiet can look like surrender if you need it to. 1 spare room pillow, 2 coffee mugs, and of course I chose to call it his mood instead of his decision. Dante had another event that night. Not an official city event. Not even close. A private promoter night for investors and hospitality people, the kind of room where everyone took photos like evidence of being wanted. He had sent me the flyer 3 days earlier and then a separate message saying it would be better if I came as myself. Not as City Hall. As myself. That phrase did work on me. Mila used to answer these things fast. She used to send outfit ideas, voice notes, warnings wrapped in jokes. That day, she only liked my message after lunch and wrote that she might be busy. Might be. From Mila, that was a locked door with flowers painted on it. Evan came home at 6 and found me at the dresser. The velvet ring box sat between my perfume bottle and the small brass tray where I kept earrings. I had not opened it all week. That was not an accident. Neither was leaving it visible. He stood in the doorway and asked if I was going out. I said yes. He asked if I was going with Dante's group. I said I was going with people who did not treat a club like a crime scene. There it was again. The old pattern. He named one room. I made it a philosophy. Evan did not take the bait. He stepped inside and stood by the window, not near the door. His hands were empty. That made him look less like the man I had been fighting and more like someone who had put down the tools. He said he could live with a wife who needed space. He said he could live with late nights, loud rooms, and friends he did not always trust. He said he could even admit he had made marriage sound too much like a curfew when he was afraid. Then he said he could not live with a wife who performed being unmarried for applause. No anger, no speech after it. One real statement. It should have stopped me because it gave me the exact opening I had claimed I wanted. He had admitted the true part. He had named his fear. He had made space for my complaint. Instead, I took the sharpest true thing and used it like it explained all the false ones. I told him he had made marriage sound like a curfew instead of a choice. He looked at me and did not refute it. That silence should have taught me something. It did not. It fed me. Being right about one sentence can feel like being right about the whole room if you are hungry enough. I opened the velvet box. The ring sat inside, bright and small. My grandmother's hidden stone was still there, invisible under the setting. I touched the band once, then closed the lid. I left it on the dresser. Voluntary things have a different sound. The ring did not slip off in a bathroom this time. I did not forget it. I did not leave in a rush. I chose the bare hand before I chose the dress. Evan watched the box, not me. Not. He said he would handle things properly. No named threat, no papers, no court. Just properly. From Evan, properly was not a word. It was a system turning on. I told him he could organize his feelings into a spreadsheet if that helped. He moved his wedding ring from the dresser into his pocket. It had been sitting there since Sunday. I had stopped noticing it. That was another choice, though quieter than mine. At the club, Dante met me near the promoter table. He glanced at my hand and smiled, but the smile was shorter than last week's. He introduced me to two investors by my maiden name, Yara Nassar, and said I was the woman who understood nightlife better than City Hall deserved. I laughed because the old rhythm was still there, but something in Dante's face had changed. He checked who was filming before he leaned close. He asked if my husband was the type who made private problems public. I told him Evan was the type who folded socks when wounded. Dante did not laugh as hard as he should have. Inside the bathroom, the mirror lights were harsher than the week before. No cherry smoke this time, just hairspray and a wet paper towel stuck to the sink edge. I held up my hand and took a picture, thumb slightly bent so the bare finger showed. I sent it to Mila with one line about being released again. The message delivered. No answer. 3 minutes later, I sent another. Then a third. The typing bubble appeared once, then disappeared. That was all. The absence was small on the screen. It did not feel small in my hand. Back in the main room, Dante pulled me toward the edge of the VIP booth because a photographer was taking group shots. Someone asked if I was married. I do not know who. It came from the left, near the bottle service tray, half joke, half invitation. I said I was single when I needed to breathe. It was not shouted. It did not need to be. A woman near Dante repeated it louder, laughing, and the camera was already up. The thing is, I thought I was winning because the room understood the line. One bare hand, two flashes, and of course I mistook attention for support. Dante's hand moved away from my back after the second photo. Not far. Just enough. Agenda B, if I had known how to name it then. Self-preservation arriving under cologne. My phone buzzed near midnight. Evan had sent one message. He said the apartment would be quiet when I came home and that we would speak when speaking had a purpose. No question mark, no fight, no demand for my location. I stared at the message in the hallway near the coat check while people moved around me, laughing and searching for lost tickets. For the first time that night, I wanted him to call. Not because I wanted control, because a call would mean there was still something messy enough to pull apart. But Evan did not call. Dante came over and asked if everything was fine. I said yes. Of course I said yes. He said maybe I should keep him out of anything domestic. He used that word like my marriage had become an unpleasant smell near his shoes. Then he kissed the air beside my cheek for someone else's camera and moved back toward the investors. When I got home, Evan's shoes were gone from the hallway. His work jacket was gone from the hook. The blue dish was still by the door, but it held only my spare key and a parking receipt. The velvet box was not on the dresser anymore. I walked into the spare room. The bed was made. The drawer was empty. On the desk sat a neat stack of our shared bills with sticky notes on the ones in both names. No letter, no speech, only organization. I had spent 2 weeks calling his calm a cage. That night, the calm had no bars at all. It had an exit. Monday morning, the apartment building lobby smelled like wet coats and the lemon cleaner the concierge used near the mailboxes. Evan stood by the front desk with Erin beside him. He held the apartment keys in one hand and the velvet ring box in the other. The thing is, I had expected a private scene. 1 lobby camera, 2 witnesses, and of course Evan had chosen the cleanest room in the building. He said he was returning my spare key and taking his name off the shared access requests for the building. His voice was level. Erin looked at the floor, not at me. That small mercy made me angrier than a stare. A man in a dark jacket asked my name. I signed for the envelope because my hand moved before my pride caught up. The paper was thick. My bare finger pressed against the clipboard while I wrote Yara Nasser. Inside was a petition for dissolution of marriage, a motion for temporary exclusive possession of the apartment, and a temporary financial restraining order. The first temporary orders hearing was scheduled for August 6th at 9:30 a.m. The exhibits were not surprises. That was the worst part. The bathroom story with my bare hand, the group chat screenshot, the rideshare times from the first lounge night, the video from the second club where I said I was single when I needed to breathe. No miracle evidence, no trap, just the rooms I had chosen, placed in order. I tried to tell the concierge that Evan was punishing me for going out. The concierge looked at the access form on his screen and said Evan had already submitted the proper request to separate building permissions. Proper. Of course. Dante deleted the tagged stories before noon and sent one message saying he could not be involved in a divorce file while investors were reviewing his brand. I moved into a short-term rental above a closed bakery with 1 suitcase and no blue dish by the door. The temporary financial order froze new withdrawals from our joint savings until the hearing. Nadia stopped inviting me to dinners, and Erin refused every message that began with "Please hear me out." Dante removed me from the club's event contact list and called the whole thing bad optics through someone else. My city supervisor asked why municipal nightlife partners were forwarding screenshots with my name attached. Mila never came to the lobby. She did not call that day. She liked one old photo 2 weeks later, then vanished again. The thing is, I thought taking off the ring would prove I still belonged to myself. It proved Evan had been the only person left treating that ring like it meant something. I wanted one night where nobody could call me wife, and then every night learned my name without him. The velvet box stayed on the lobby bench until Erin picked it up. My bare hand opened the apartment door alone.